It has been 3 years since that baby shower, the day Patricia's quiet words cut deeper than I expected, the day that changed how I saw everything. 3 years since the worry, the ache, the slow unraveling of old fears I didn't even know I was still carrying. When I look back now, I see a different picture than I did then, one filled not just with hurt, but with growth and with the small miracles that time can bring. Life didn't fix itself overnight, but it softened, like a stubborn knot slowly loosening in patient hands. We learned to talk, to listen, to forgive without needing to revisit every wound. And somewhere along the way, those sharp edges between us became smooth. Noah grew into a curious little boy with bright eyes and a smile that could melt even the coldest day. He loved picture books, toy trucks, and running around the backyard with the kind of energy only toddlers have. Sometimes he'd reach out for Patricia, sometimes for me, with no hesitation between us anymore, no sense of one love being safer or stronger. Emma would watch us from the doorway with that familiar soft smile, the one that always made my heart swell. Daniel took hundreds of photos, capturing every silly moment because he wanted Noah to grow up surrounded by love from every angle. And I realized, slowly and quietly, that this was how a family truly grew. One afternoon, while Noah played with building blocks on the floor, Emma sat beside me with a thoughtful expression. She leaned her head on my shoulder like she used to when she was a little girl, needing nothing more than quiet comfort. "Mom," she whispered, "I'm glad things got better between you and Patricia." I placed a hand over hers, feeling the warmth of her fingers curl around mine. "Good things take time," I said softly, "and sometimes they start with a little hurt before they grow into something gentler." Patricia arrived shortly after, holding a small bouquet of tulips, my favorite, though I'd never told her that directly. She smiled when she saw me, not the polite, delicate smile from years before, but something warmer, more grounded. "I brought these for you," she said simply, setting them on the counter without ceremony. Just because. No reason. And in that tiny gesture, I felt something shift, a quiet acknowledgement of all the steps we had taken toward each other. Love doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it's carried in tulips on an ordinary afternoon. As the years continued, the four of us found a rhythm that felt natural, almost effortless. Holidays became shared events, with my mashed potatoes and Patricia's roast sitting side by side on the same table. Noah grew up believing that it was normal to have two grandmothers laughing together in the kitchen, teasing each other about recipes and fussing over him in equal measure. Emma and Daniel watched us with a relief that softened their faces, grateful that the old tension had dissolved into something nurturing instead. There was no more stepping on eggshells, no more holding breaths when we all came together. Just family, imperfect, learning, but steady. And sometimes, late at night, when the house was quiet and the dishes were washed, I'd sit and think about everything that had happened. About how fragile love can feel, and how strong it becomes when it survives misunderstanding, pride, and fear. I no longer replayed the hurtful words in my head, no longer wondered if I'd been replaced or overlooked. Instead, I thought about the many ways we found our way back to kindness, how Emma's honesty opened a door, how Patricia's apology softened a wall, and how I chose to let go of the heaviness I'd carried far too long. Some stories don't end with a dramatic moment or a grand victory. Some end quietly, with peace settling into the places where pain once lived. Now, when I watch Emma read to Noah or see Patricia teaching him how to plant seeds in the garden, I feel something warm and steady bloom in my chest. Not jealousy, not fear, but gratitude for the unexpected beauty of shared motherhood. We didn't just learn to coexist. We learned to value each other, to understand that love expands rather than divides when we let it. Noah will grow up with a family that feels whole, not fractured, and that is worth every difficult step that brought us here. Sometimes I catch Patricia looking at me with a small, reflective smile, as if she's thinking the same thing. As Noah grew older, he began asking little questions about our family, simple things like why he had two grandmas who both spoil him too much. We always laughed when he said that, sharing a knowing glance that held years of learning and unspoken understanding. One afternoon, he looked up at us and said, "I think families get bigger when people decide to be kind," and the sweetness of his voice wrapped around my heart like a ribbon. It amazed me how children could see truth so easily, without any of the fears adults carry. His innocence reminded us that the love we built was stronger than the pain that once hovered between us. In those moments, I felt grateful for every hard conversation, because they led us to something so gentle. One sunny spring day, Emma invited both Patricia and me to help Noah with a school project about family heritage. We sat around the living room floor with construction paper, glue sticks, and old photographs spread everywhere like small pieces of our lives waiting to be understood. Patricia shared stories of her childhood, and I shared mine, and Noah listened with wide, fascinated eyes as if he were discovering treasure. There was no competition in our voices anymore, just simple memories handed down with love. Emma watched us with a soft smile, her eyes shining with quiet pride that her family had learned to grow together. By the end of the project, Noah's poster board was covered in pictures, drawings, and little notes that showed a family woven together by patience and healing. That evening, after Noah was tucked into bed, Patricia and I sat on the porch with cups of tea, the sky painted in shades of orange and pink. We didn't speak much at first, just letting the quiet hum of the neighborhood and the chirping birds fill the space between us. Then Patricia smiled softly and said, "Mary, I think I finally understand love isn't a contest. It's something we make room for, even when it means letting go a little." I nodded, feeling a warmth spread through my chest that hadn't been there in years. We shared a long, easy silence, the kind that only comes when hearts are finally aligned. In that moment, I realized that patience had given us a gift far greater than reconciliation, a new way to love, together and without fear. Over the following months, our visits became more natural, filled with laughter, teasing, and even small debates about which cookies Noah liked best. Emma often paused to watch us, her eyes lighting up when she saw the ease we now shared, the way two women could love the same child without competition. Noah noticed it too, pointing out how Grandma Mary and Grandma Patricia sometimes laughed at the same joke, and it made him giggle uncontrollably. Life no longer felt like a careful balancing act. It felt abundant, messy in the best possible way, and alive with connection. Every small moment holding Noah's hand at the park, baking with Emma, sharing quiet stories with Patricia became a thread weaving our family closer. I understood then that love, real love, wasn't about perfection or hierarchy. It was about showing up, day after day, no matter what. One crisp autumn morning, I found myself walking through the park where Emma had once played, Noah toddling beside me, his small hand gripping mine tightly. Patricia followed a few steps behind, humming softly as she watched him explore, her eyes soft with amusement and pride. I realized then how far we had come from tense politeness to a quiet, unspoken partnership in raising this little boy with love and patience. Noah stopped to point at a squirrel, and both Patricia and I laughed when he tried to shoo it away, his determination fierce and charming. I felt a swell of gratitude for the lessons we'd all learned, forgiveness, patience, and the understanding that family isn't fixed, it grows and bends and heals. In that simple, shared joy, I felt a peace I hadn't known I was searching for, the kind that fills the heart without needing words. Later that evening, back at Emma's house, we sat around the kitchen table with Noah asleep upstairs, sharing tea and stories about our own childhoods. Patricia told me about her first disastrous attempt at baking bread, and I laughed, remembering the times I had burned cookies while trying to multitask with Emma at my side. Emma watched us from the doorway, a soft smile on her face, and I realized she was witnessing something important, love that had been tested and had survived. We spoke of nothing and everything, the conversation meandering like a calm river, without tension, without judgment, just connection. It struck me that this was the family I had always hoped for, messy, imperfect, but grounded in care and understanding. And in that quiet, ordinary moment, I knew that what we had built, a network of love spanning generations, was unshakable. Noah began to speak more clearly, and every new word became a small celebration. We shared Grandma, Mommy, Daddy, each one carrying a weight of love that tied us together. Patricia and I would trade little stories of his day, laughing at the same mischief or marveling at the same discoveries, sometimes finishing each other's sentences as if we were thinking alike. Emma watched us, her eyes soft with gratitude, and I realized she no longer felt torn between us, but rather enveloped by a circle of care she had always deserved. The past misunderstandings no longer mattered. They had shaped us, yes, but they did not define the present. In those quiet afternoons, with sun streaming through the windows and the smell of fresh tea lingering in the air, I felt the fullness of family, steady and warm around me. One Saturday, we decided to take Noah to the little library where I had worked for so many years. He toddled between the shelves, pointing at picture books and laughing when I read aloud in silly voices. Patricia followed with a bag of snacks, occasionally helping him turn pages while we all shared in his delight. Watching her patience and care, I realized how far we had come. Our rivalry and discomfort had melted into something cooperative, even joyful. Emma walked beside us, holding my hand for a moment before letting go to chase after Noah. We left the library with laughter echoing behind us, and I felt a lightness in my chest that had been absent for too long. That evening, as we returned home, Noah fell asleep in my arms, his small face resting against my shoulder. Patricia carefully adjusted the blanket around him, whispering, "He's so lucky to have you." I smiled, feeling the warmth of her words, and realized that our hearts had grown in ways we hadn't expected. Emma watched us quietly, a soft smile on her lips as if she could finally breathe without worry about choosing sides. I thought about all the years of tension, of silent hurt, and how each moment of patience, each gentle choice to forgive, had brought us here. The quiet of the house felt different now, not empty, but full of love, layered and steady, a place where we all belonged. Over the following months, our Sunday visits became a small tradition, each one carrying a sense of calm and belonging. Noah learned new words every week, and both Patricia and I delighted in the way he tried to say our names, often mixing them up and laughing when he got it wrong. Emma seemed lighter, more at ease, as though the invisible tension that had shadowed her happiness had finally lifted. Sometimes Patricia and I would sit together on the porch, sharing memories of raising children, and I noticed how often we laughed at the same mistakes we had made. We weren't perfect, and there were moments when our old habits flared up, but they no longer defined us. Instead, there was a rhythm, quiet, gentle, patient, that connected all of us in a way that words could barely capture.